A manly song I like to sing a manly song. My manly friends all sing along as we sing our manly song. I am a manly man who lives a manly life in my manly house with my manly wife and two manly children and a manly guinea pig. My cell phone's very small and my TV's really big. A manly song I like to sing a manly song. My manly friends all sing along as we sing our manly song.
Man Talk!
Yes, and just like the intro said, this is Man Talk. I'm Reed Horner here with my Uncle Jamie all the way from North Bay, Canada. How you doing, Uncle Jamie?
I'm doing good, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You ready to get with us? I have some questions for you we're going to need you to answer.
Absolutely.
All right, so in my Quest for the Male Soul class I take, we read Sidney Poitier's book, The True Measure of a Man, or one of the biggest statements he said, one of the biggest kind of, calling cards, but a moral he has, that he believes the true measure of a man is how well he provides for his children. What do you think about that when he says that?
Well, I think it's a measure of a man. I don't necessarily it's the true measure of a man, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. Not all men have children, right, or families for that matter. So to measure someone purely based off of that statement alone, I think falls short a little bit. However, I'm sure the context that was framed in was for a father of a family, your conventional family. And so providing for his children, that is a measure for sure, and it's important. What do you think he meant, like monetarily or emotionally or all of it? Do you have any sort of context for that?
I think he just meant like be in their life and support them. But you're right. The first thing I thought about is like, what does that mean? What about like 2015? So there's gay couples or whatever, or a couple doesn't choose to have children, or a stay-at-home dad who has his wife as the career woman. Because I assume that provide for children is this kind of like a 1960s view of it. It's like monetarily is one of the main ways they do it.
Yeah, and that's what I took from it as well. I mean, when you read the statement, it's a statement that jumps out at you as someone who's being responsible, taking care of his family because he has a family, right? And so how well does someone provide for his children is a true measure of that person, financially, spiritually, emotionally. I think the big thing here is the presence of a man in the family.
But is it the presence of a child that makes him the man? Because take someone, I'm 18, still in high school. Take someone in my exact age and whatever. Are they more of a man just because they have a child? So they have a child at 18 years old. Is the child what makes him a man, or is it what the man does in reaction to having a child make him a man?
The mere possession of a child does not make you a man. You know what I mean?
The possession of a child.
It's a funny thing, right? You laugh at it, but it's factual, right? I mean, you just because you are able to create a child or have a child, or some people marry into families too. Just because you marry into a family doesn't make you a man because you are in a child's life in whatever capacity. It's the actions that back it up, right?
Well, can you think of any role models in your life that would be maybe defined as as a true man?
That's interesting, Reed. Absolutely. There. I think from my past and from my early childhood, the most influential man that had an impact on my life would have been my grandfather. And I don't know if it was the wisdom he seemed to have or the ability to touch on important topics when we had conversations. But I'll always remember that grandfatherly advice, and it really that was one of my main role models as a young child, because you look up to it's your mom's dad, and there's that respect And then when you look, and then when he dealt with the grandkids, he was very much a role model to us.
So would you consider like a mentor or more of a role model?
I would say for him, it's because, again, it's early on in my childhood. That was probably my first role model that I really gravitated towards. I would say he was more of a role model than a mentor, just because I was so young. I look at mentorship as someone who gives you those non-tangible things, how to succeed, not so much as setting, and I look as a role model as someone who sets you up as your character, your ethics, your values, those sorts of things. And so a mentor can be someone who can help you succeed, but not with the specifics of success.
Well, I think you can be a role model and not have any kind of investment in the child or whoever. You can be a role model to anyone, but I think a mentor would be someone who's invested in the time and the success of a person, and then the role model could be someone who, because they use what athletes, for example, as role models.
You raise a good point.
They're not really invested in the child's life, but they're a role model to them.
Right, but if you look at the words role model, right, it's a model for someone's role in life, right? And so athletes, I think, are good role models or they can be looked at as role models because it's what people want to aspire to be. But realistically, not many kids succeed at becoming a professional athlete. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like 0.05%.
Right, and so I bet you a higher percentage become grandparents. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I agree with you. I mean, in modern society and pop culture and all that, role models are looked at, actors, athletes, politicians to some regard. But I looked at my grandfather as a role model. I think professionally now that I'm older and I have a career going, I look at mentors now, and it's a big thing in my occupation for what I do for a living, that we have mentors that guide us along in helping us be successful at our work. And so that's probably where I'm coming from my perspective here, is that the role models piece was someone that, impacted your life, who you could be more similar to, down the road.
I think it's a tomato type of thing. And the only difference would be, I think a mentor has more of a close contact with the person, as opposed to a role model can be kind of at a distance.
You're right. You made that point earlier, the investment in the individual. You're right. A role model doesn't necessarily have to have that, because role model can go two ways, right? Someone who practically tries to reach out to you, but maybe not personally. Your agent can set you up as a role model, but not with any person, right? But it's how the people who perceive that person,
Well, speaking of role models and setting an example, I'm sure throughout your life you've had some adventures. Can you think of any moments in your life that maybe you wouldn't have been the best role model? Some adventure that may have involved some risks, you got some benefits at the end. Anything that kind of pops into your mind?
So when you say adventure, do you mean in this context? Do you mean like, for instance, I'm in the Air Force, right?
Yeah.
So I've gone on some deployments that had some significant risk. I've gone on up to the Arctic a few times in some pretty foul weather, and there was not much of a chance to turn back, and we had to get there. But I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for.
I'm not looking for anything. I think it's more of a vague statement, I guess. You don't have to go into the Temple of Doom to have an adventure. It could be.
That's true.
It could be like a social thing, or even just. It was more of a thing. Like when you think of adventure, does anything like what's your idea of an adventure? Something that is risks your life, something that's adrenaline seeking, or just something that you haven't done previously in your life?
I think you and I both know the answer to that question. Absolutely. If there's no, for me, I'm a pretty adventurous guy. So for me, my career choice alone says that I like to take risks, measured risks at that. But still that the adventure of being in the military and some of the operations I've been on, mostly domestic, like in Canada. Yeah. But for that matter, I always think about the Arctic time I've had up there. I've been surrounded by wolves up in the Arctic
with the giant bunny rabbits that are like
giant bunny rabbits that are the size of
dogs.
Size of Yukon. Yeah, and the risks were, so the mission I used to do up there was to resupply the northern outpost, and so we go up there and we set up our air traffic control system to get the airplanes in to resupply our station up there. It's the most northernly inhabited place on the planet. Permanent installation anyway. And so anyway, if we didn't get that job done up there, people weren't getting fed, electricity wasn't being produced, and they wouldn't be able to sustain people up there. So the risk for failure meant shutting it down.
Well, I mean, that sounds like an ultimate risk.
Yeah. So that was, while we're trained to do that kind of stuff, but adventure, I would say that's one of my, when I pack it in at the end of my career, I'll always remember that. I've done 5 missions up there to resupply that northern post, and it was quite a rewarding experience. And so the benefit, obviously, there's twofold. To the individuals that were up there, they got resupplied, and they continue doing what they do up there. And then for me personally, just succeeding at something like that in an isolated and austere location, it's quite an accomplishment and a memory you'll never forget. You know what I mean?
I mean, I wouldn't know, but it definitely sounds like it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So speaking of growing up, what is the best advice you've ever gotten?
So I guess the best advice I've ever gotten, it goes back to mom and dad telling you when you're a kid that, ethics and values. And, I go back to my grandfather too with, they tell you, practice what you preach, those sorts of things, right?
The cliches.
The cliches, buddy. Do unto others as you would have do unto you.
I think that's in the Bible. Is that in the Bible, or I should know that?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, you should.
I should know that.
But yes, that is in there. Take that as some advice. But it's sound because it means it applies across all religions, right? And all ethnical backgrounds and ethnic backgrounds. That's what I meant to say. And because, do unto others as you'd have done unto you, right?
Pretty simple. It's almost
the best advice you could ever give. I say that to my folks daily, the people that work to me. I don't say it in those words, but, treat people like you would want to be treated.
It's like Newton's law. For every reaction, you have an equal and opposite reaction.
Absolutely.
Type of thing. No, it makes sense. There's a reason. Cliches are rooted in truth, so it's not like there's some just abstract sayings. They do have meaning, so that makes total sense. But
absolutely, buddy.
As a father of 2, this question you probably have a good answer for because you've raised a young man. But do you have any advice for young men growing up, going off to college? I know Robert, your son, just went off to college this year.
That's right.
Do you have any advice for not only him, did you give it to him, or for anyone else around that age, kind of in that transition from childhood to adulthood?
It's funny. So you're asking me if I made the conscious effort to provide him any sage words of advice. Well, I don't think I have.
I don't think you sat down and put him on your lap with
listen here, bro.
Pipe
words for you. Exactly. But if someone were to ask me that question, and I think if you were to sit Robert down and ask you, he'd probably be able to come to this as advice that I have demonstrated and maybe not verbalized, put into words. If you go, when you go to college, it's just you finish high school, now you're going to college, university, and you're pursuing a goal. And on your road to pursuing that goal, you might even not have that goal defined. But as you're moving toward that path, you can picture it as a toolbox you're carrying. And out of high school, you got some bare bone basic tools, like the hammer, the saw, the screwdriver, right? That gets the big work done. It gets the majority of the work done. You're going into college, you're getting the finer caliber tools, right? To get the fine details. And this toolbox you have is built off your experiences and your knowledge that you gather over time. And you're expected to retain that stuff. Not all of it, you know, there's, you know what I mean? You're going to be retaining these experiences and the lessons you've learned as you move on in life. And you're going to end up applying these things. So what I would suggest, my biggest piece of advice is never think that you know everything. Although gather as much information you can and put it in that toolbox so that you can use it when those experiences or challenges, or you're confronted with these challenges. Because you got family, you got friends to rely on. At the end of the day, when you make decisions, that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to make a decision, and you're going to use it based off of, you know, your mom's advice to you, my advice to you, your brother, your grandma, all these folks. And same with my kids. They're going to make these decisions based off of my input, their experiences. And so when you're off to college, that's just the next phase of you collecting these experiences, albeit at a higher level, you know, academically. But take that, you know, work towards it. And at the end of the day, your toolbox will have more tools in it to deal with life's challenges and your career aspirations as well, obviously.
Sound advice, Uncle Jamie. Thank you.
All right, buddy.
I think that's everything. I want to thank you again for coming on. Everybody, that is Jamie Marshall, my uncle.
All right.
For this short edition of Man Talk, I'm Reed Horner. Till next time, guys. Thank you. Bye.
I can't wait for the next edition, buddy.
Me neither.
A manly song, I like to sing a manly song. My manly friends all sing along. Long, 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 as we sing our manly song.